everyone! Since I didn't expect to make this, I don't have any footage of the actual video editing process, so instead it'll be a Q&A with my model and some light editing this time. But in the next one, I'll have that footage ready for everyone to watch while I chat. Now, if you haven't checked out my stained glass video, then please look at my pinned comment below to watch it first, because I won't be showing the video here due to it using Chinese video footage, even if none of the events shown in there are spoilers to those who completed EX04 and Selena's Interludes. But future Project Life videos most likely won't have this issue, especially after the sync is over, so nothing to worry about for the future ones. Anyways, let's get started. How did I make stained glass Selena? Good question. Funnily enough, I never intended to make a Project Mural video this early. I did have it planned for eventually, but not this early. In fact, stained glass was supposed to be the first section of the Why Selena Needs to Suffer video. In the end, I decided that it was better off as its own video, and that's how stained glass came to be. Why did you make it its own video? So I wanted to create content that satisfied both the lore veterans and lore newbies, but I didn't want to make a summary recap video or a super long video essay that overwhelmed people. Nothing wrong with both, but it wasn't something I was interested in making at this time, especially the video essays. Now, I do intend to make the video essays again once I'm fully caught up, but for now, it didn't seem worth pursuing until then. I do have a large list of video essays I intend to make once I'm fully caught up, but that's not what this video is about. So going back to the topic at hand, stained glass is meant to reward lore hunters who read the story and pique the interest of those who didn't. Those who want to learn more about my creative process and get an understanding of the character's lore at the same time can just watch this long video Project Life video series instead. Why is the script a poem? Well, one of the main reasons why it's a poem is because 1, I myself enjoy writing poems from time to time, but 2, Selena is an artist. What better way to portray her lore than poetry? I mean, sure, I could have done a play instead, but that's still too much information for a casual player. Poetry allows me to use the visual aspects to help viewers understand her story, but also refer to the major events and mental condition of Selena through the words of the poem. Also, I do believe poetry has the immense power of helping people feel more emotions and develop their own thoughts on the matter, even if they don't fully understand. It just felt like the right way to go about expressing her lore. Aren't there downsides to poetry? Not everyone likes such a thing. That's true, but that was a risk I wanted to take. I'm not sure if all of the future Project Mural videos will be in a poetry format, but for Selena, this risk felt worth it in the long run, at least to me. Why did you choose Selena for the first Project Mural episode? Doesn't it make more sense to choose Lucia or Alpha or even Luna? Well, that's true, but I had my reasons for choosing Selena. I actually chose her because her role as a character brought a significant change to the story, or even a shift, so to speak. I think an easy way to explain this is by explaining what the story would be like if she wasn't actually there as a playable character, or even a character that was major in the story. First, if she wasn't in the story, there would be a lack of relatability among the characters. And what I mean by that is that all of them seem too competent, too powerful, too reassuring of an existence, including us as Commandant. With Selena's position though, she brings a new layer and perspective to the world of Punishing Greyhaven. What it would be like if we were there, if we were privileged like her. How their life and our lives are still paralleling and the same if we chose the same choices as her. Perhaps not completely the same since everyone leads different lives in reality, but the pattern of humanity's mistakes and arrogance are instilled in her. Now don't get me wrong, even if I call her arrogant, I think she's a nice person. But her reasons for becoming a construct can be considered arrogant and shallow. And that's definitely done on purpose, at least that's how I feel, because we as people are arrogant too with our choices in life. We think that nothing applies to us, even if it happens to others, until it happens to us. And by then it's usually too late to fix it, or at least in our perspective, it would be too late to fix. This relatability is what makes her impactful as a character and to the story, because aside from her privileged opportunities as a playwright, most of us are as powerless and weak as her. Admittedly, unless you're in the military, we wouldn't normally stand a chance unless we have the strictest self-discipline and training that military people get, and even so, mental fortitude is a difficult thing to have, even amongst the most trained. So her weakness, her humanity, is what makes her so impactful as a character. And yet, her endless struggles, her endless sufferings, and her endless pitiful hope is what gets us. Because we're also going through the ringer. Sure, we're not actually dealing with her kind of situation ourselves, but to some level of degree, we kinda are. And that's what makes her compelling. We want to see her succeed, but we don't. And that hurts the most because the disappointment and sadness that we have over her is what we feel on a typical basis, but in smaller doses in real life. So to conclude, she's very important as a character, since we would continue to harbor shallow delusions and dreams of a great beautiful world that was devastating at times, but that would never really affect us if we imagine ourselves becoming a part of that world. Oh, sorry. When in reality, we would be in as much trouble as her, and even potentially find ourselves in worse situations, feeling helpless and frustrated over our weaknesses. She brings yet another reminder that not everyone needs to have a deep backstory, and that not everyone chooses to become a construct due to family, friends, financial troubles, and a noble cause. Some choose it for shallow reasons like Selena. At least, I don't believe leveling up your arts is a great deep reason to go join a war, but you know, that's just me. Maybe others believe it is, but personally I really don't think so. This new layer, though, to the world of Punishing Grey Raven ensures that we get to see more perspectives and types of people who become entangled in this war against the punishing virus. Because that's how the world can expand more and become as vivid as our own, in our own minds. Such significance to the story development and world building is why I chose her as the first project, instead of Alpha, Lucio, or Luna. Why are the section titles of the poem written the way it is? Okay, well, first, the introduction and coda. Those are the first two that I'll talk about. Introduction and coda refer to her days as a musician. For those who don't or never have played instruments or written music, then you might not be aware of this, but the beginning of a song is typically called the intro or the introduction, while the finale or the final part of the song is typically called coda. Hence why I thought it was fitting to choose those terms instead of a normal intro and conclusion section titles. Now for the other section, let's talk about the Her Past section title next. Her Past section is pretty clear-cut, but it's actually split into two subsections that aren't really written down anywhere except for in the script that I have. The first subsection is called the pre-construct, and the second one is called construct. You can probably understand what those sections are if you read EX04 and her interludes, or even have any basic knowledge of Punishing Grey Raven. But for those who don't, the pre-construct section tackles the most significant moments in her life as a normal human being. Meanwhile, the construct section tackles the most significant moments in her life as a construct. Pretty clear and easy to understand, right? So I did make this distinction in the script because I really wanted to make sure the viewers get a clear understanding of the differences between the two parts of her past, but also the fact that they merge and connect into one past, Selena's past. Hence why I didn't divide the two in the actual video, and it was just called Her Past. Then we have Metamorphosis. Now, metamorphosis actually refers to the major events when she was captured by Gabrielle and is forcefully changed into a monster before becoming freed by the Commandant, aka us, right? So in the script, I actually called it Captured and Freed. Pretty simple, right? But for the actual video, I didn't want to call it that because it sounds so not elegant, not artistic, and I just didn't like it. Especially when the whole thing is a poem by Selena, you know? So I decided to think about her life experiences and her mental state during those supposed not commotion, but the coma that she was in during the time when she became a monster. And it really reminded me of a butterfly's life cycle. I know, really weird. I don't know why my mind just went, oh, flower, Selena, music, art, butterfly, cycle. Yeah, that's basically what happened. But I, in particular, focused on the part when she breaks free from her monster form. And it really reminded me of a butterfly, you know, in the final stage of a butterfly, or at least when they're becoming a butterfly. So that's why I decided that metamorphosis was the perfect word to describe what Selena was going through. And, you know, it works as the official name of the section, or at least I thought it was the best name. I don't know, maybe you guys have a better idea for that one. Let me know down below. At 2:18, why did you focus so much on Selena's suffering? Oh boy. So, before I answer, I do want to explain a bit more about my thoughts on Selena. Now, this might be an odd thing to say, or maybe it's not, but I think most people are like Selena. We daydream about grand adventures, imagine dramatic tragedies, don't know what we want to do with our lives, and wonder if there's more to life than a boring day to day. She's like us, but not like us. She dreamed of similar things and had similar issues, but ended up taking action by becoming a construct. Whether that's a good thing or not is something I still don't know. She thought she knew what she was getting herself into, and she thought her purpose for joining was good enough. I really don't think so though. But she was wrong. She didn't know what she was getting herself into. Her reasons for becoming a construct were, as I said earlier, shallow at best in the harshest of words. And as sad as this may sound, I actually think a lot of us are like her. A lot of us get into things without really understanding what we're getting ourselves into, and a lot of us end up regretting it in the end. But Selena didn't really have that kind of fortune. She had to face death, and she didn't have time to properly regret, and she knew she could never undo her decisions at that point. So all that was left was getting traumatized and trying to find any reason to hold on, to keep living. But I actually believe that this trauma of hers is something that's pivotal to her story. Obviously, it's not a happy thing for anyone to have, but in her story, this was the turning point where everything changed for her. That's why I focus so much on her suffering. So I wanted to depict how her trauma affected her and her obsession with completing the mission for the rest of the team who died at the space station. The TV depicting her inability to connect with what's going on and her dissociating from reality in order to protect herself mentally. The TV being in the red water, showing her current situation of trying to move forward, but still falling into the deepest depths of hell, unable to escape. The TV static effect, showing an even more dissociation and disconnection from reality. It's like how we, the viewers, might view her life, you know, just looking at it from a game and, oh, it's a story, it's cool, yeah, it's good. But she herself is seemingly viewing the events that went on like that too. And this is what dissociation is like, where it's like you're watching a TV of what's going on, even though it's your body that's experiencing it literally. It's kind of weird to explain how it works, but for those of you who actually experienced it, you know what I'm talking about. So hearing the sound effects later and screams of those dying while she's trapped, you know, when she was in the red water or the red tide, I tried to mimic it in a sense that in the way that some traumatic memories can grab a hold of you without letting you go. And I don't really mean PTSD where you have hallucinations and things like that, but rather how when you think of such memories, it's so vivid in your head. And you just can't remember other things in life, even if you did have good things happen in your life during that time. And you end up thinking and obsessing over those traumatic memories. And then you become entangled, strangled, suffocated by them, as if the memories are going to haunt you forever for the rest of your life. It's why some people are unable to get over their PTSD, while a few are able to by the help of, or with the help of a therapist or even something else, who knows. So by the end of that section, the TV is then gone, right? But the TV static is still there. And at that point, I was trying to show that Selena knows that she's free now because the TV's gone. But the TV static is to indicate that at the same time that she's unable to break free from her trauma despite this. Now, some might argue that not everyone who has trauma dissociates. Yes, that's true. I'm not going to disagree with you on that. But Selena showed aspects of dissociation when she was caught by Gabrielle and forced to transform into the monster when she was in the Red Tide. At least from her point of view. I don't remember if it was the Interlude or EX04, but it did show that she was trying to figure out what her reason for going on is, and her obsession and remembering the memories that she had at the space station is what kept her going. So as if it was like, TV, where she was just reflecting like, what is my reason? I went through all this, but was it really something? That kind of mindset, it just felt very imperative to reflect on this dissociative state properly, because I don't know if most people have ever went through trauma and dissociated, which I hope you didn't, personally speaking. It's not a very pleasant feeling to have, obviously, but it is an important aspect of Selena, the way that she is as a person, or at least as a character. So I really wanted to reflect this throughout her stained glass video to show that this did happen to her and this is how she viewed it when she was going through it. Because she's quite a normal person inside, someone who's not strong enough mentally and emotionally to face their situation up front without dissociating or showing other symptoms of mental trauma. And that's actually one of the main reasons why I recorded my voice more monotonously and with less decisiveness, even until the end. And I know one of you guys pointed out that you wanted more decisiveness, but again, if you actually went through trauma and you just got out of it, there is no way there's no way you'll have a decisive voice and be like, oh yes, this is what I'm gonna do now. Like, personally speaking, at least from my understanding, it's not really like that. So there might have been some quiver in my voice here and there, but again, even so, a person who is starting to undergo recovery or just got out of the traumatic situation is not going to suddenly get out of their brain fog and mental trauma, because usually for those who did experience trauma, you will be having a lot of brain fog for a very long time, at least normally. I mean, maybe some people don't have it, but from my understanding, it is the way it is, where you have brain fog, and it's extremely hard to think if you ever did get brain fog in your life. It's really hard to remember things, to really have clarification in the things going on around you, and it just feels like you're floating in life for a very long time, until one day it's like, oh, my brain fog is suddenly gone. It's like being hungover, sort of. That's like the closest I could think of. That's how it feels. Aside from the headache, I guess, maybe. I don't know, depends on the person, I suppose. But seriously, as I expected though, even at the end of her EX04, she didn't really seem like she suddenly had a hold of herself when she was looking at the sunset. And she didn't really seem like she was ready to do more. Like, she seemed done. She was tired, wanted to rest, accepting what was going on. Like, literally, she seemed relieved, like, once, she supposedly fulfilled her mission, at least in her eyes. At least that was my understanding when I read it at the time. So that's why I decided that voicing the poem in this way was the more accurate portrayal of Selena's mental state. At least in regards to EX04 and her interludes. But maybe it's different in the future chapters though. Who knows, I haven't read that far yet. And I don't know if she appears again. So of course, whether you guys enjoyed that portrayal or not is a different story, and that is totally fine. I just wanted to be true to what she was going through in the making of this video, so that's why I recorded it the way I did. You said that her trauma is the turning point in her story, but why do you think she needs to suffer in the game's story? Yes, the golden question that this video was actually supposed to be about. But I'll be talking about it here instead. So, of course, a lot might say that it's because Kuro Games wants her to, and they are right. But if we were to step into the shoes of the writing team at Kuro Games, then that's not a very good reason for including a character and making her suffer this much. I mean, I guess you can, but you kind of need to make people care for them in order to make people want to pull for them, right? Plus, if you're just thinking of it from a writing perspective, each character needs to have some kind of purpose. And just making her suffer just because is kind of weird of a reason, not very good writing. But again, let's answer the question, so why does she need to suffer? I think that she needs to suffer. Of course, this is my opinion. If Kuro Games says something else, then we'll go with that because obviously they're the ones that created it and created the story. But from my opinion, it's to bring us back to reality about the heaviness and devastation of that world. It's to punish the naivety and foolishness behind our decisions. Just as life in our world punishes those who continue to be naive and foolish about their life and their decisions. The harsh and unforgiving life in our world and theirs. And it's to make her wake up from her delusional dreams, a dream that was beautiful but naive. And just like that, before EX04, we see more of the past rather than the present, and we're all healing from the worst of times, at least what they call the worst of times. And we overcame the struggles we faced from enemies, and are saved by the mercy of the greater powers around us. Everything felt so convenient for us before EX04, and it was filled with so much hope. We weren't as worried about the future of the characters at that point, right? Or at least I felt that way. Instead, we felt that everything was going to be okay as long as we stubbornly made our way. That their dream of a better future can still happen until we found Selena. A reminder that from now on, nothing will be convenient for us, nothing will save the characters from the devastation of the world they live in, and nothing will be black and white ever again. And this horrifying reminder with Selena may be only the beginning. The breaking of a dream, a delusion, and a wish for a happier end. Punishing those who truly think that things will get better for everyone in the game. That there will only be more punishing and suffering when you hold idealistic and unrealistic dreams like Selena once did. That within the pain and suffering and punishing, there might be an inkling of hope and peace. But without such realizations, everything will come crashing down for everyone from here on out. Yay! Oh gosh. Now, whether each character ends with the Song of Warning, the inner peace of a sunset, or the drowning of darkness will be something that remains to be seen. But whether that end for each character is actually happy in our eyes is something I question deeply. But I do believe that the end of each character will be just as beautiful and terrifying as Selena's. But the happier and freeing those realizations become for each character, oh gosh, I foresee the more devastating and punishing Selena's will become. Why? Because she is the representation of us, the normal people, the normal, the naive, the foolish, the idealistic, and the darker side of the world we live in. The most human side of us, and the weakest side of us. Because the brighter the light is, the darker the shadows become, right? And if the realizations from the other constructs and characters become the light, then hers will become the darker shadows of those lights. Because she's the shadow at the end of EX04. At least that's my understanding of her role in the story and the other significance that she has as a character. At 3:26, it felt random to have such scenes there. Why did you choose those? Right, okay. Well, to be honest, I didn't have as much footage as I had hoped to have, but I did have reasons for choosing those two in particular. The first one, where the scene of her, bowing to the audience, I tried to make it reflect Selena reminiscing of her past as she looked at the sunset. I don't think I did a good job with that, honestly. I'm not really proud of that part. And there are actually a lot of things in the video that I wish I could have fixed or edited a bit better and cleaner, but I really wanted to release this as a first video for you guys to experiment and see if you enjoy it or not before I continue making future ones. So yeah, but then the piano playing at the end is actually from the Chinese video, and I felt like it was very fitting because, at least for this particular part of my stained glass video, because the piano playing could symbolize her tidying up her final thoughts and conclusions about everything that occurred in her life. With the way she was playing those keys really fast and intensely, it's kind of how people tend to overthink and trying to reach a conclusion as fast as they can. And that rush is what I wanted to express with that piano playing. And then of course it ending with the sound-like particles covering up the scenes as a tradition, or not tradition, but a transition, was a good way to conclude it all as abrupt. Because honestly, our thoughts are not really like logical or, smooth and nice. It's usually abrupt, speedy, and all that stuff. I don't even know why I say spat. I don't even know if that's even a word. But either way, it was just a good way for me to express how abrupt everything felt to her and her conclusions on her life and reflection on her life. And it's also symbolizing how she could have felt when she was reminiscing of her past as she looked at the sunset. At least that's what I wanted to portray. Why did you end the video with Selena getting ready to send a letter? Oh boy, okay. Now, before I answer that, I want to add a bit more context that will explain why I ended the video the way I did. Okay, first, let's disregard Selena Tempest's affection story for a bit, because I'll touch on that a little later, but not right now. But in the main story, by the time a player starts EX04, I assume that most of them probably forgot about Selena's existence unless they were a major fan of her since the start. And as we went through EX04, we're reminded of her presence and existence slowly but surely through those, flashback things. And at one point, we might have even expected her to be saved by us, since that's how it always worked out in the previous chapters so far, like chapter 13 and whatnot. And to have happy moments at the end of the chapter, but of course that never happened, unfortunately, sadly. But interestingly enough, in EX04 and in previous chapters, even within the main story, Selena seemed almost, what's the nicest way to put it? Forgotten. As well, by people in the story. Except for the one person who treasured her the most, her best friend, Ayla. Even though Selena was someone famous who seemed to have had everything and was praised for her creations, she seemed forgotten except by her friend. Now I know that many people in life are unlucky compared to her. They might not have someone who cares and would do anything to search for them. The few who are lucky might tend to treasure it or might not, and regret it and regret not cherishing it when they had it. So I guess in that sense, life reflects tragedy and tragedy reflects life. As Shakespeare once said, "This world is but a stage." And to Selena, that truly was her life, a stage. Unfortunately or fortunately, this tragic life setting of hers is what I feel makes her such an effective character as well. Because the best stories are the tragic ones, most impactful are the tragic ones. Don't you agree? Or do you not agree? I mean, happy ones are great too, but the ones that you tend to remember, or the ones that really made you feel stuff, was the tragic ones. Even for games, I feel that would be the case. But maybe that's just me. I feel like many would agree, but you know, there are some outliers out there who disagree. And since Selena is a playwright, how ironic it is that she ends up having this story that's the most tragic and the most impactful to a person who never expected it from her. To someone who probably could have cared less about her until reading her story. I mean, personally, I liked her since the trailers that I reacted to, but like, for others, I'm sure that was not the case. Because honestly, as Commandant, like with our actual role as Commandant, we had the least amount of interactions with her in the main story. And we also had the least amount of investment in her emotionally because we didn't really know her as a person. Like, we didn't know her as Selena. So there was no real reason to care about her until then. So keeping this in mind, why did I end the video with Selena getting ready to send a letter? Because this video is a letter to Ayla, not us. In fact, we can say that the poem was written by Selena for Ayla to read, not for us. Now, before you talk to me about the affection story, I will cover that soon enough. Just give me a second. So that's actually why I didn't show Selena facing us, the viewers, at the end, because we as Commandants don't have as much value when compared to Ayla in person. Like, as in to her as Selena, not as a pen pal. Sure, we played a significant part in freeing her from her monster form, but compared to Ayla, at least in person, we don't hold as much significance at this point in our life. So it felt more appropriate that Selena would send everything about her life that happened so far in the form of poetry to her dearest friend Ayla, using the flowers Selena symbolizes and in the form of letters. And of course, even if we do consider her Tempest affection story, what I said earlier still applies and is correct in my opinion. Because think about it. Again, Selena only knew us as her pen pal in the affection story and vice versa. We didn't actually know her as Selena, and she didn't know us as Commandant. So even if the actual footage from the Chinese video could have technically been a scene of her sending the letter to Commandant as a pen pal for the sake of the stained glass video though, I used that scene conveniently to portray a scene of her preparing to send a letter to Ayla instead. Now, the reason why I don't place an importance on Commandant at this point is because even in her affection story, we conveniently forgot about her until we saw her letter again, okay? Do you know how sad that is? So in the end, Ayla is the one who always remembered her, and Selena sang, not to mention in the space station, in the hopes that Ayla would find her at the space station or at least notice her, so that she can fulfill her mission. So it all depended on Ayla, and Ayla is the one who gave us information about Selena's interest in whales in EX-04. In the end, Ayla is the one who continued to ensure Selena's existence was known in the game. Not us. It was Ayla. Okay? So in my eyes, even if Commandant was a special pen pal for Selena or a special existence for Selena for a very long time, we didn't actually know her in person, okay? And we didn't actually meet her in person either until like at the end of her affection story. So I'm not doubting Commandant's importance to Selena, but we really weren't known by her as Commandant. So at least at this point of the story, it didn't make sense to put Commandant at the end compared to Ayla. Because, you know, affection story is an affection story. By the way, that's why I believe Ayla as a person holds more significance to Selena than Commandant, because she wasn't a pen pal to Selena. They knew each other as equals and as friends, so the iris symbolized Selena's soul, and the sending letter part is Selena sending her life story to Ayla, who always appreciated her art and saw her as an equal in the art world. We don't have that kind of position in our life. If anything, it would just be a straight up letter of, you know, her conflicts and all that stuff, but it wouldn't be poetry. I highly doubt she sent poetry to Commandant in the affection story. At least that's how I feel. So that's why I chose the scene with the interpretation that it was for Ayla instead of us. I mean, obviously, like I said, in the Chinese video, it's probably for Commandant, but in this video, Stained Glass, that is not the case. So that's also why I ended the video with the poem saying Selena, to indicate that it was the end of her letter to Ayla. And it's the end of EX04, not the end of the affection story, which is probably taking place after EX04. So that is why I ended the video the way I did. I'm curious about something else about the Stained Glass video. Well, I do recommend that you comment down your question below or in the comment section of the Stained Glass video, and I'll be happy to share my thoughts and more about my creative decisions there. But please don't send your messages with your questions on my Discord server or in a community post. I will not be answering those. Mostly because I prefer to answer your questions here so that those who have similar questions can find the answers easily without moving away from the video. That, and I would prefer to have it here so that I know that it's for this video instead of some random thing. So all in all, I do hope you enjoyed listening to my thoughts about Selena and why I made the decisions that I did for the Stained Glass video. This particular video covers the major questions people had about my video and the things that weren't very easy to understand, or at least that I thought was probably not going to be very easy to understand for people. And of course, if you enjoyed Stained Glass or this behind the scenes discussion video, then please give the video a like, share, subscribe, and comment down below. I'll be looking forward to releasing more Project Mural and Project Life videos for all of you who enjoy punishing Grey Raven. Thank you for watching. Bye!